The battle for Umbara was one of the most notoriously grueling and casualty-heavy battles of the Clone Wars, ending on a rather grim note. In this video, we will tell you not only what you observed in the series, but also what was left behind the scenes. Umbara was located in the eponymous system, Phantom Nebula, where sunlight rarely reached the planet itself. As a result, Umbara was a dark and twilight world where plains and hills were constantly shrouded in fog. The planet was home to unusual plants, including carnivorous ones such as the Vixus. The world itself was filled with various predators like the gladiopod and slybex. Umbara had been part of the Galactic Republic nearly since the inception of this vast state. Battles frequently occurred on this planet between the Republic and the Empire. Moreover, a Sith Academy was once constructed here where the Brotherhood of Darkness trained numerous Sith assassins. So, what made this planet so attractive to everyone? At first glance, it can hardly be called a breadbasket of fertile soil or a world that attracts tourists. The entire point lay in the planet's strategically advantageous location, through which several main hyperspace routes passed. The planet itself was literally in the middle of the most important of these routes, the Great Kashyyyk branch. In short, this is a hyperspace lane running from Zeltros to Charos, 4 through 3 regions of the galaxy: the Inner Rim, the Expansion region, and the Mid-Rim, named after the planet Kashyyyk, the homeworld of the Wookiees. This location allowed the Umbarans to attract substantial investments, on the basis of which they achieved rapid technological development. Due to the constant threat of invasion on the planet and the impossibility of timely support from its ally, the Umbarans invested in military technology that far surpassed the galactic standards of the time. This emphasis on military technology turned the planet into one large military base. Although the Umbaran army was not numerous, it was sufficient to defend the planet itself. On one hand, this made life easier for the Republic, but on the other hand, excessive militarism raised serious concerns in the Senate, creating an image of Umbara as a dangerous competitor. The Umbarans themselves also recognized their growing power and took control of the Great Kashyyyk branch. This meant that all Republic trade with the worlds located in this sector now passed through the Umbara government, which received its share from all the deals. The hostile takeover of the route and refusal to disarm seriously angered the Republic. However, no active steps were taken to resolve this issue. And after all, Umbara did not secede, and the planet's government continually reassured the Senate of its loyalty. One can only speculate why the Republic turned a blind eye to all this. On one hand, they didn't even have much of an army to force Umbara to cool its ambitions. But perhaps the Republic's policy was driven by the withdrawal of many worlds neighboring the Umbarans due to the disarmament policy. This compelled the Senate and the Chancellor to ease the pressure so as not to lose even more allies. Despite the fact that Umbara was with the Republic supporting its side in the Clone Wars, and some Umbarans were in the Chancellor's inner circle, such as Sly Moore, they were also frequent guests at the separatist meetings. They traded and built quite close ties with the banking clan or the Trade Federation. Actual battles between the Umbaran army and droids did not occur at all, even though the CIS armies were literally standing at the planet's doorstep. The issue here was that most of the planets, such as Randan, Balamak, and Onderon, had joined the separatists. Some worlds were already occupied by the droid army, and essentially the only allies of the Republic in this sector were Umbara and Kashyyyk. Kashyyyk was literally surrounded by the Confederacy, and the only route connecting it to the Republic was through Umbara. The Republic heavily relied on this corridor since the CIS began tightening the noose around the Wookiee planet. But at the most crucial moment, the Umbarans sided with the separatists, cutting Kashyyyk off from the Republic. The official excuse for such a turn was the assassination of Senator Meade Dici in 21 years before the Battle of Yavin, but to me this seems very contrived. In complete isolation, Kashyyyk even began considering joining the CIS for the sake of trade. The Republic, realizing it risked losing not just an ally, but a large part of the Mid-Rim with lucrative hyperspace routes, immediately set about deblockading Kashyyyk, initiating the Umbara military campaign. Initially, the Republic wanted to resolve the issue through diplomacy, but quickly understood that the process could drag on, and it would be easier to seize the planet. Therefore, parallel to the diplomats just departing for the first meeting, the Jedi had already started developing an invasion plan. It was decided to repeat the tactics used by the Jedi in the Battle of Saleucami. When the Republic fleet emerged from hyperspace, they caught the Separatist fleet, which hadn't yet managed to deploy the droids, but was ready to repel an attack. The space battle was tough. The Republic struggled for a long time to break through the Separatist defenses, but eventually they managed to breach the blockade, largely due to the efforts of Jedi Ahsoka Tano and Barriss Offee, who commanded the starfighter forces in the early stages of the battle. Without waiting for the end of the space battle, the Republic's landing ships immediately began descending to the planet, exploiting gaps in the defenses. The clone army initiated their landing from 4 sides near major Umbaran cities and military bases, creating a ring around the capital. The Umbarans did not sit idle either. They prepared a series of defensive positions around the capital, primarily concentrated in the south and east. 3 large bunkers were created: Grek, Usk, and Creel. These were designated as the primary targets in the battle since they served as operational headquarters for General Enodius and General Farnese, a pair of renowned Umbaran leaders. To the west of the capital, there was also an air base that the Umbarans used to transport supplies to the front line. The entire capital region was covered with dense jungles, full of natural obstacles and traps, predators, numerous anti-aircraft defenses, as well as separate Umbaran units with various sets of equipment. The Republic concentrated its offensive on the capital, directing the main forces of all 4 generals to its capture. Obi-Wan Kenobi commanded the ground operation. He divided the 7th Airborne Corps into 3 directions, making it the main strike force. Kenobi and Commander Cody advanced toward the capital from the south. General Saesee Tiin and General Pong Krell were to assault the eastern Umbaran bunkers, thus preventing the smaller Umbaran army from concentrating their defense in one place. Meanwhile, Anakin Skywalker and his 501st Legion landed behind the defensive fortifications and approached the capital from the north. Despite successful advancement, the Republic faced fierce resistance. Even during the landing, the clones and Jedi realized that victory would not come easily. Before landing, the Republicans lost 1/3 of all landing ships. After the landing, the entire Umbaran arsenal crashed down on the clones. Due to the rough terrain and the desire to capture the planet as quickly as possible, the Republic's army went without heavy equipment. The clones were covered by fast AT-RT walkers, which were the first to land on the planet's surface and establish beachheads. As they moved deeper into Umbaran defenses, the clones encountered a vast number of fortified zones, ambushes, and little-studied high-tech heavy equipment. Additionally, the local fauna met the foreign invaders with a huge appetite. Vixus, gladiopods, mantors, skirices, slybexes, Vixian maulers, and deadly banshees gladly devoured the soldiers unlucky enough to fall into their clutches, tendrils, or claws. Skywalker's 501st encountered all these problems in their worst form. It was expected that the 7th would bear the brunt of the damage, but the Umbarans had also taken care of the rear. When they moved south to the fortified ridge covered with Umbaran hover tanks, they also faced strikes from Umbaran fighters and hordes of Umbaran soldiers who fired at them from the shadows. The Umbarans expected the Republic to try to outflank their defense, and allocated most of their equipment specifically to fight this unit. But the 501st managed to capture the ridge and move deeper into the jungle. Nevertheless, they faced resistance at every step, giving the fighters not a moment of rest. On the eastern and southern fronts, the units of the 7th Corps managed to break through the forward defensive lines of Umbara and capture the bunkers. While Skywalker subjected the northern ridge to carpet bombing, other units began advancing towards the capital, encountering fierce resistance along the way. Skywalker, trying not to fall behind, also maintained a relentless pace. But suddenly there were changes within the ranks of the Republic. He was recalled to Coruscant, and Pong Krell came to replace him, immediately assuming command. His troops joined forces with Teen's fighters on the Eastern Front, and Kenobi united all the forces into one fist for a swift strike on the capital. Krell's leadership style greatly differed from Skywalker's. He showed no regard for the lives of clones, commanding them to advance along the main road to the capital, instead of opting for a safer and less obvious route. He argued this was due to time constraints. Problems soon arose. The vanguard company encountered a minefield and subsequent ambush. Reinforcements from the rest of the legion were needed to repel the Umbarans. Once the partisans were driven off, they regrouped and counterattacked, this time with air support. The clones were driven off the main road into the jungle. Krell forbade retreat and demanded immediate recapture of the road, as they were falling behind the rest of the forces. But their advance was halted by a call from General Kenobi. As it turned out, their advance was also stopped. The reason was an airbase to the west of the capital, from which supplies were being sent to other fronts, making the advance towards the capital nearly impossible. The 501st was to alter course to capture the airbase, cutting off the capital's supply routes. Krell ordered a retreat, thus halting the senseless attack. Allegedly wanting to seize the base as quickly as possible, Krell commanded the 501st to advance directly through a narrow gorge to the airbase. The gorge was perfectly suited for an ambush, which the reconnaissance had previously warned the Jedi about, but it was ignored. It happened immediately. A group of worm-like tanks emerged from the ground and quickly opened fire on the clones. They were crushed, shot at, pierced, and buried. The Umbarans entertained themselves as best they could, but the clones managed to overcome. Using rocket launchers, the soldiers destroyed the tanks, but soon encountered a more deadly weapon. The airbase, having learned that the enemy was approaching, dispatched several mobile artillery units, their largest and most powerful armored divisions. Squad after squad of soldiers were obliterated. The clones had no means to destroy the behemoths, and thus clone troopers Hardcase and Fives took the initiative to acquire new weapons. Against General Krell's wishes, they broke into the Umbara airbase and hijacked a couple of starfighters, which they then used to destroy the guns, allowing the 501st to continue the advance and capture the airbase. The units, having suffered heavy losses, finally received a respite. Krell chose the base as his command center and began planning his next move. When the airbase fell into the Republic's hands, Kenobi and Teen launched a full-scale offensive. Air raids allowed the 212th Battalion to create breaches in the enemy's defensive lines. Pajai squads deployed directly into the enemy's rear, cutting off supplies to the front defensive units. In close combat, the Umbarans were at a significant disadvantage, and their impractical helmets became prime targets for the fists of Sergeant Barlex's troops. Having lost the airbase, the Umbarans were deprived of their last supplies, forcing them to retreat to the capital. The 7th Corps rushed towards the capital at breakneck speed, sweeping aside everything in its path without much effort to take prisoners. When the capital was encircled, the Republic brought in artillery. Kenobi hoped to take the city on the first try, which was reckless. Attack after attack faltered, but where did they get the strength? The fact was that the Umbarans began launching missiles at them from orbit, from where the Confederacy's supply ships also delivered munitions and medical supplies to the capital. The space battle, which by then had moved into the upper layers of the planet's atmosphere, began to turn in favor of the Confederacy, threatening the entire Republic offensive. But the situation changed again when 3 hijacked Umbaran fighters, piloted by clone troopers Fives, Jesse, and Hardcase, entered the battle. These clones infiltrated the Confederacy's supply ship, and at the cost of Hardcase's life, destroyed it from within. The destruction of the supply ship also seriously damaged several nearby warships, creating chaos that allowed the Republic forces to regain the initiative. Because the Umbaran ships were spotted during the destruction of the supply ship, discord arose between the Separatists and the local command, leading to clashes between them. This also played into the hands of the Republic, which gradually took control of the situation. Deprived of supplies, the clone forces captured the city gates and finally stormed the streets of the capital. But for General Krell, this did not matter. He was furious that the clones had disobeyed his order to stay away from the Umbaran fighters, and he ordered Fives and Jesse to be executed. Contrary to his order, the clone execution team refused to kill their brothers. Throughout the campaign, Krell had been repeatedly criticized by the clones. His orders were considered more harmful than helpful, but it must be admitted that they still could not be classified as criminal. The confrontation between him and the clones was rooted in the general's refusal to see the soldiers as individuals. Krell regarded them as droids who should blindly follow orders, not think creatively. This conversation, I believe, alludes to a series of comics, which I will discuss at the end. Krell resigned himself to the soldiers' refusal and sent the 501st on a mission to the southwest, into the jungle where, according to him, the Umbarans had stolen clone armor to use against the Republic. And it seemed that Krell's information was accurate. Clones were attacked by clones. Opponents in the armor of the 212th opened fire on Rex's men and a skirmish ensued. During the battle, the captain discovered that these were not Umbarans at all, but their brothers. Realizing the full horror, he hurried to stop this carnage. The clones were horrified. No one could understand the meaning or reason behind this order. Meeting with the commander of the 212th unit, they uncovered the truth. At a certain moment, Waxer, a clone commanding the unit, reported that it was Jedi General Pong Krell who ordered him to attack Captain Rex and his men, claiming they were disguised Umbarans. Rex had received completely opposite information from the same general. Unfortunately, due to injuries sustained during the fight, Waxer died, which completely infuriated Captain Rex. The embittered clones of the 501st and 212th followed the captain back to the airbase, intending to arrest the Jedi. When the troops surrounded the headquarters and ordered the personnel to vacate the premises, the soldiers entered the tower to interrogate the crazed general. Surprisingly, Krell did not even try to hide that he had indeed turned against the Republic. A battle erupted in which Krell attempted to flee to the enemy side through the jungle, killing many clones in the process. In the jungle, he wiped out every search party that tried to find him. This continued until clone trooper Tup tricked the Jedi into falling into the grasp of a Vixus. Although Krell defeated the beast, he was stunned by Tup and brought back to the airbase. During interrogation, Krell revealed that he not only hated the clones, but was also deliberately sabotaging the Republic's attack to earn Dooku's favor and become his new apprentice. Such a candid confession enraged the soldiers even more. The situation outside the base was also dire. The remaining Umbaran units intended to reclaim it, as the traitor Jedi had compromised the security system, and there was a high risk that Krell might escape. But this was not to be. He was executed by clone trooper Dogma, who had blindly followed all his orders. The 501st managed to repel the attack on the airbase, and simultaneously the capital fell. The ruling council of Umbara surrendered and the remaining separatist ships retreated. It only took the clones a few days to suppress the scattered pockets of resistance. The Battle of Umbara ended, and despite everything, the Republic emerged victorious. After the death of Pong Krell, the 501st Regiment returned to the battle, only to discover that it was over. The remaining time was spent by the Republic in assessing the losses, which were catastrophic. It was so severe that the impending campaign on Kashyyyk, which was supposed to begin immediately after the victory on Umbara, was postponed to reinforce fresh troops. This battle is primarily interesting because it showcased many references to legends. For the first time, we saw the darker side of the Jedi, the difference in perspectives between them and the clones, as well as a truly large-scale engagement. Honestly, since the Battle of Christophsis, I cannot recall any large-scale battles shown in this animated series. It's a pity, of course, that the idea of differing perspectives wasn't fully explored. In the Dark Horse comic series, the conflict in viewpoints between Quinlan Vos and the clone trooper commander Faye was depicted. Vos saw the clones as droids in living shells, incapable of creative thinking or feeling. Faye, however, did not reject this. He relied on logic and the code. He, in fact, demonstrated creative development. When Luminara Unduli discussed the sounds and drawings on the walls, she discovered that these creatures possessed information about secret hyperspace routes. Faye overheard this and considered it very valuable information that should be immediately provided to the Republic. Too smart for beings perceived as blanks, strictly following orders. On the other hand, the lack of tact in the soldier is very clear here.